So he says the soul-making theodicy certainly dispels the notion that God created the world for our unmitigated, pain-free blissfulness, right? Where it's just for us and all that kind of stuff. He says what are we to make of this soul-making theodicy, that here we have this evil because, it's attempting, God is trying to accomplish something in us, right? Trying to improve us. He says the principles behind this theodicy are certainly biblical and have tremendous value for the believer, but the theodicy is not without problems.
Very much so.
Right. Many have criticized it, he says, employing the same objections that the greater good defense has. It suffers from other concerns as well. For example, we must admit that while evil has a soul-building effect on Christians, right, it does not have that effect on others, right, because if it's for us, if it's to improve our character, what about the folks who are not believers?
Yeah.
Right? What effect does it have on those folks, right?
Not all of them are the Darth Vader, the Emperor, the Stormtroopers. they're not all on the other side. And there are just some people who aren't believers that are just generally good people, but they're going through this, and there's nothing that seems to be attained by them through this process in the end. So he quotes Tim Keller here and says that he makes an interesting point about this quote here. Tim Keller says, many people with bad souls get very little of the adversity they apparently need, and many with great souls get an amount that seems to go far beyond what is necessary for spiritual growth. The Psalms, and that's the end of the quote there, the Psalms abundantly testify to this dilemma. Many wicked people seem to prosper while the righteous suffer inordinately.
So not only, we can question whether or not unbelievers are gaining something, but we can also question how come sometimes unbelievers seem to get away with stuff and their souls aren't improved, right?
Right. They got away with justice. Justice wasn't meted out against them. Bernie Madoff still lived like a king for, so many years, making oodles of cash, and then, went to jail and died in the later part of his life. Okay, those are the worst years. Sure, okay. No one really cares at that point, and you still have thousands, millions of people affected by those actions. So where was justice and all that?
Yeah.
And I do think too, on both sides of the spectrum, we have a terrible view of what justice is and trying to explain, what fulfillment of justice is. It seems like, okay, you have a trial for someone, they're found guilty, they're put on death row and killed. I don't know how someone can say, oh, justice was done because life was taken for a life without more information there. We just have a society that operates on those rules, and I can see a specific deterrence for that. But I think as far as when it comes to the idea of justice, I think there's more work there that needs to be done by people that I can just put forward the questions and they can do the hard work that I can read about.
We must recognize that we can't know whether adversity has a soul building effect or not. We just can't know. In the case of Cain, for instance, right? Perhaps it didn't, right? It didn't affect him, right?
But he went and lived in a city, and that's the end of that story, yeah.
But obviously in the case of Abraham and Joseph and Moses and Ruth and Daniel and David and so forth, Paul, countless others, yes, it did have this effect. However, he says, nevertheless, the soul-making theodicy has limited value and can never be the basis, he tells us, for a comprehensive theodicy. Is the building of the souls of the faithful through adversity the sole reason, he says, he questions, right, for allowing evil to wreck the beauty and tranquility of the whole created order, right? Destroy the whole thing just to build, my soul. Yeah.
I didn't even ask for this.
Right. Yeah. He says, as important as such soul building is, there must be reasons that penetrate the enigma, he tells us, of this ubiquitous sin and corruption of universal death and decay and of all the manner of catastrophe with, greater depth than the soul-making theodicy does. So he says the idea here is he doesn't believe that this particular position, although it has some merit, goes far enough to explain the amount right? He says the ubiquitous of sin, even though it's like that, the amount of corruption, the amount of destruction that happens as a result of the evil that's present, right?
Right.